In this lesson, we're going to look at exploring common productivity tools to create data visualizations. I'll introduce you to the basics. These include Excel, PowerPoint, Keynote, and Google Charts. All of these different tools start to break down when you use a lot of data. So in the exercises, we're going to use really tiny data sets because the point here is to make sure that you become familiar with different tools rather than be overwhelmed by the amount of data that you might be working with. So let's say you're working with a data set of the world's largest shipping ports. Well, actually, the World Bank provides this data set, and shipping ports and their size are measured by an economic indicator called TEUs, or 20-foot equivalents. This is the standard measure for port container traffic. So let's say that you want to display the port by TEU volume. You want to compare a set of values. An easy way to do this is through a bar chart. To get started with our first Excel exercise, make sure that you've downloaded the data set. Just go to the bit.ly link that I provided. This will take you to Google Drive. Download the data and make sure it downloads as an Excel file. So the name of the file should be ports TEU traffic XLS. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to do is open up the data in Excel. This is what it looks like. So it's organized by column of rank, the port, the volume in TEUs, in millions of TEUs, the particular website in which that data was derived, and we also see another column for the volume in 2010. We're just going to focus on the container volume for 2011. Let's say we want to visualize the top 5 shipping ports. So how do we do that in Excel? Well, you just simply highlight what you want to display on the X and Y axis. So our data points here are our TEU volume by shipping port. And why don't we choose a bar chart? And we'll choose a clustered bar. We want a horizontal bar chart. So what can we learn here? What's the top of the largest shipping port? Well, we see that Shanghai is. We see that the 5th largest port is represented at the top of the chart, where the largest one is represented at the bottom. For readability, we might want to reverse this. And so we can simply do this by sorting our data and then creating another visualization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this visualization and I'm going to highlight the entire data set. I'm going to go to the data menu, choose sort, and then I'm going to order the information from largest to smallest. And I'm going to say OK. And what I like to do is just scroll down to the bottom of the screen and then pick the top 5, which now appear at the bottom because they're sorted inversely. And then we're going to recreate our bar chart. So now you see that the largest port is represented at the topmost bar and the smallest of the 5 ports is represented at the bottom. So what are other things that we can do? Well, we want to remove some of that chart junk, right? So this series here, this legend doesn't really represent anything. What's the series of? Well, it's actually TEU volume, so we should probably add some labels and remove the legend. Probably want to remove some of these grid lines, and you can simply click on them and highlight them and press delete. That removes that. We can make it even bigger, so I'm just expanding it so you can see it. When we talked about color, blue probably isn't the best. We can use shading or maybe perhaps a gray, something that's more contrast in our graph. Other things that we can change. Well, you might see that this vertical axis is kind of hard to read. So here we can actually increase the font size, make it a little bit more readable. And if we do that on the y-axis, we should probably do the same on the x-axis. Other things that might be a little bit distracting, we might want to just use the city names instead of the full city and country name. So those are some things that we can change. You have a choice. You can change it actually in the data set, or you can change it right in the chart. So what are we measuring here? What's the purpose of this chart? What's our message? Well, we should probably add a few things to communicate that clearly. One is that we should probably have some type of title. So let's add a title. Other things that you may want to add to this, why don't we add a horizontal axis or a label for our x-axis? And finally, the last point that I like to make on refining this chart is making sure that you cite your data source. The World Bank provided this data. So once you've created your final chart, you can easily port it to PowerPoint. Simply highlight the chart, copy it, go to PowerPoint. Let's say this is our new presentation, and just paste it in. So another tool that's really great is Keynote. So Keynote is really like the equivalent of PowerPoint for Mac users. We get started by going to Keynote, and what I've done is I've copied and pasted the data from our top 5 shipping ports. So that's just the shipping port city and the volume in TEUs. I'm going to create a new presentation in Keynote, and then I'm going to go to the charts menu. I'm going to choose the horizontal bar chart here. And you notice that, wow, I already have a chart created with fake data. What we want to do is just highlight the chart and actually replace the data down in the chart editor. It added to the data set that was already there, so we just want to delete some of the columns. We want to relabel this, and we actually have the ability to reorder our data very easily by dragging and dropping. So why don't we try to make it look very similar to the Excel chart. So we want to show our series names. And since we show our series names, we can remove the legend. Also, if we go to the charts, we can actually have a little bit of a gap between the bars to make it a little bit more readable. And we can also choose our color. Right now, there's all different colors to represent each shipping port, and that's probably unnecessary. We can remove our grid lines. And we do that a little bit differently in Keynote. We just simply highlight it, and we actually change the color to transparent. We have the ability to show a title. For the x-axis, we want to show a title in millions. And there you have it. We have our chart. So you may like how your visualization looks in Keynote, but ultimately that may not be the application that you'll use to display your chart. One thing that you can do on a Mac is that you can use just the keystroke, Command-Shift-4, and you can highlight and actually take a screenshot. On the PC, it's just using print screen. And you can save this as a web-based image and put it on a website, use it in a report if you like. So Excel, PowerPoint, and Keynote are fine if you're working alone or working with a small amount of data from a single data set. But what if you wanted to work with your team on a data visualization, or share your visualization in real time, or deliver it over the web?
Next, we're going to use Google Charts. We're going to use Google Charts to visualize the top 5 shipping ports in terms of TEU volume. We're going to visualize this using a Google Chart Geo Chart. Google Charts provides a perfect way to visualize your data on your website. You can create a variety of different charts, from annotation charts, area charts, bar charts, candlestick charts, and many more. The most common way to use a Google chart is actually to create an HTML page, embed the JavaScript code that Google provides you, and then modify that JavaScript code in terms of the different data parameters, and then save your file, and then that's all really you need to get started. So why don't we go to the Google Chart website. We're going to choose Chart Gallery. Next, select Geo Chart. And the type of geochart that we're going to create today is a markers geochart. So we're going to select that. And I just want to walk through how a markers geochart works. Basically, that the size of the circles indicates the area here for a particular city, and the color indicates the population. And so you can see down here as it goes from green to blue, the population is increasing. So our objective here again is to visualize our top 5 shipping ports on a GeoChart display. So how do we do this? Down here there's some sample, what we call HTML code. So this is markup that allows us to create web pages. And it includes references to the various Google libraries. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this function called draw markers map. That's going to indicate the type of map that we're going to draw. And then down here, our data variable, you can see is an array of data that has city, population, and area. For us, we're going to want to change this data, and all we want is city and TEU volume. So we're going to modify this. And then down below, you see there are a few other options. One is called region. This is a really important parameter to modify. We're going to change this to 142, which is the region for Asia. Right now, this region is focused on Italy, and we wouldn't be able to see any of our data because the map is zoomed in on just the Italian region. Now, we're going to change that so it's going to zoom in on Asia. So those are the only parameters that we really need to modify to create our charts. Very, very simple. So the first step is to cut and paste this HTML code here. You're going to open an application, either use a text editor like Notepad or TextEdit. Do not use Microsoft Word. You can also use an HTML editor of your choice if you're familiar with that. And what we're going to do, like I mentioned, is we're going to modify this data array. So this data is organized into 3 columns and 11 rows. We're looking to visualize a data that's structured as 5 rows, right? The 5 top shipping ports and 2 columns. So we need to modify how this data is presented and the actual data points themselves. So first, let's structure this by changing the name of city to shipping port. That will be our first column, and our second column we're going to name TEU volume and replace population. And our third column we're going to remove completely, so you can just delete that. Then we're going to modify one by one each of the different we're going to add our shipping ports. So the first one is Shanghai, and then we're going to put in the shipping port volume of Shanghai. You might have to go back to the data set to look at that, 31.74. And then we're going to remove, again, that third column of data. And so your job is to do this for all 5 shipping ports. So once you've entered in your data, it should look something like this. So organized into 5 rows, 2 columns, first column being shipping port, second column being TU volume, and then you've mapped the appropriate rows. The next step is for you to change the region from IT, and I mentioned earlier, to 142. 142 is the region for Italy. To understand the full list of region codes available, simply go back to the Google Charts page for Geo Charts. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there are different continent codes, subcontinent codes, and also country codes. So you can choose which one is most appropriate. Again, we're choosing 142 for Asia. So let's go back to our text editor, make sure that we've changed region to 142. We're going to save that as shippingports.html. The next step is to open shippingports.html in a web browser. So we're just going to say open file in Chrome or Safari, Firefox, and we're going to navigate to that shippingports.html file. We're going to open it up. And voila, we have our shipping ports plotted on a geospatial display.
So I definitely encourage you to add Google to your toolkit for creating great, beautiful visualizations.